Well, hi everyone. I'm Lori La Bey, and welcome to Dementia Chats. This is a forum where we get to hear people with dementia speak about what it's truly like, and I feel honored to be able to facilitate these because I personally learn so much from them each and every time we do these. I truly do believe they are the true experts, and I think their voice needs to be heard. And please share this video when you see it with others. They just have such great insights. So our format here is really informal. We kind of go with the flow. We pick a topic right before we start. And anyone can join in the conversation via the chat box. So you might see some others pop in here, or it may just be us. It just all depends on how the format goes. And today we're going to be talking about anger. But before we do that, I'm just going to have everybody introduce themselves so you know a little bit about our experts living with dementia. And True, if you would start us off, please.
My full legal name is Truthful Loving Kindness. My current diagnosis is mild cognitive impairment. I have had several small strokes, so I've got some vascular symptoms and some Lewy body symptoms. I'm very active in advocacy, blogging, and passing on stuff from other people.
Okay, great. Thank you. Pauline?
Hi, my name is Pauline Gordon, and I live in Cincinnati. I was diagnosed 4 years ago with vascular dementia. I try to get involved in as many advocacy efforts as I can. I recently wrote a booklet called Vascular Dementia: An Inside Perspective, and I just try to do what I can.
Great. And the booklet, and I know the video interview we did on Conscious Caring Resources, just got some great, rave reviews. People really appreciated all the work and effort that you went into share your knowledge with that. So any of you out there, check that booklet out. I still have it on my homepage on alzheimerspeaks.com and on our in our YouTube format. And then, Pauline, do you want to just let them know where they can get the booklet? It's on Amazon, I believe.
It is on Amazon, and it is free to Kindle Unlimited members. It is 99-cent download charge for others. You can download it onto any laptop or any Kindle or any kind of reader you might have. But the best way to find it is to look up my name, Pauline Gordon, as you see it in the screen there. That's the quickest way to find the book.
Wonderful, thank you. And Michael, do you want to introduce yourself?
My name is Mike Wallenbogen. I am 58 years old. I'm living with Alzheimer's. I was diagnosed at age 49 after trying to struggle for 10 years to get a diagnosis. Today I spend my time advocating for this cause, and I live in Pennsylvania.
Great, thank you. Harry, how about you?
My name's Harry Urban. I live in Pennsylvania. 12 years ago, I was diagnosed with dementia, probably Alzheimer's. But as my dementia is progressing now, I'm showing more and more signs of vascular dementia. So I think there's retesting that they were suggesting to me, which I am balking about. I'm not interested in it. But I also created a Facebook support group called Forget Me Not.
Wonderful, which is a great resource for people, and I recommend that they check that out as well. Thank you, Harry. And Brian, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself as well?
Well, thank you, Lori. I'm Brian LeBlanc. I'm in the beautiful Gulf Coast, Pensacola, Florida. I am a Alzheimer's advocate for the Alzheimer's Association, also for Covenant Care, and I'm a board member of Dementia Action Alliance. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm on the leadership council of Dementia Action Alliance. Wanted to make sure I had that straight. That's a story for yet another day. Anyway, I do have a blog called A Bit of Brian's Brilliance.com, and I just live the best I can each and every day with Alzheimer's.
Okay, great. Brian, I'm going to start with you on this whole anger issue with dementia, just because you wrote a post last night that I thought was wonderful. And I believe it was titled, "I Hate You." And I can't cut to the chase any more than that. But if you want to talk a little bit about, how you feel about your diagnosis, with dementia, I think that would be helpful for people.
Well, when I started the blog off, I made sure that I tried to make sure that I wasn't spouting hate towards, a particular person. I was spouting hate towards Alzheimer's. And I even said, it said that hate is a very strong word, and it's a word I hardly ever use. However, there are certain instances when the use of this word is appropriate, and this is one of those instances. It's not, a lot of people, when they have Alzheimer's, or people that don't have Alzheimer's, don't understand fully unless they are in it with that person. And I'm talking about our care partners, our family members, and our extended, but not even the extended family sometimes don't get the whole idea of what it's like. We have this disease that, to be honest with you, it's a terminal illness. Those of us with the genetics that are involved with it. I lost my mother in January of last year to Alzheimer's, my grandfather in '85 to Alzheimer's, my wife's grandmother in 2014 to Alzheimer's, and my father in 2010 from vascular dementia. And it just, and then I get it. It's like, okay, come on, what else you got for me, Mm-hmm. And it's just something that, I don't know, it's as difficult as it is to live with, and every day is, for me, and I'm sure for a lot of other people, it's a brand new day because sometimes we can't remember what we did yesterday. Mm-hmm. The people that you see on the screen right here, we're all suffering. I'm sorry, I don't say suffer. We all are living with a dementia-related illness, but we can still talk. We can still live in the moment. Now, that moment is going to pass, and we may not remember it, but for the time being, and thank you for recording these, because we can look back and kind of remember what was going on. But I had someone write to me last night about using hate and so forth. But I just reminded him. I said, I'm not hating a particular person. I said, you have to understand how many people I have lost in my family to this disease. And I said, I'm not hating it for myself. I hate it for my family. I hate it for everyone that has lost a loved one or a friend or someone in their lives to a dementia-related illness. I said, for me, it is what it is, but I just hate what it's done to other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think everybody can pretty much relate to that. Disease isn't something anybody wants, and it's a difficult thing to go through. I'm going to go ahead and throw this up to Paul Ann next. We're going to mix it up a little bit here. I'm not going to go in order. So.
Okay. Well, when I think of my anger, I really think it stems from frustration more than anything else, and a feeling of loss that this disease brings. I mean, it seems like every time I turn around, I lose something else some other ability. I lost the ability to read a book, which killed me because that was my favorite hobby. Now I can't watch movies because I can't remember who's doing what and the whole intricate plot. And it's just frustrating because I'm running out of things to do. and things that I like to do. I guess I have to find new things, but in the meantime, I'm very angry, and frustrated at these losses.
Yeah, it's a continuous thing. You kind of get used to it, is what I would see with my own mom, and with myself too, because it's not just you as an individual getting angry with the disease, but it's kind of got that whole ripple effect there too, where I'm sure you guys see your care partners having some anger issues too, with the disease as well. And it's you kind of get to that plateau and you get like all adjusted, and it's like, okay, this is good. And then something happens again and trips you up, and you kind of got to start all over again. And I know in watching, my own mother and so many others, just the work it takes, the focus it takes from those living with dementia to continue on. And I just don't think the general public, and I don't think a lot of families and even medical professionals understand what it takes for you to regroup and be able to, achieve and connect and feel purposeful. It's sometimes personally, for me, it's almost wears me out watching, because I can feel and see the mind spinning and looking for alternatives and trying to help find some of those alternatives as well. Pauline, do you get tired, or is it just, is my perception really off with that?
No, I get tired, I get weary, because it is a struggle. Every time, as you mentioned, every time there's a new loss, you go through a whole new cycle again, and you have to find the creative ways to do something else. Well, what else can I do? And it's very exhausting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Brian, did you have a comment?
You brought up this about the medical professionals, and I was on a conference call. What's today?
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Okay, I was on a conference call last week, and it was a group of medical professionals. There were doctors, there were people from the medical profession, and they brought me on to talk about Alzheimer's and what it's like to live with Alzheimer's. And what was going on was they were a group of medical professionals talking about people with Alzheimer's without having anybody with Alzheimer's in that group to tell them exactly what it's like to live with the disease. And when I talked to them, I was getting, after the conference, I was getting all these messages like, oh, it was so insightful and this, that, and the other. And I was thinking, why didn't they think about this before? It's like when you're trying to help something or build something, you get a model of what you're using. And they were using individuals like us, but I guess making up what we were supposed to be. So that kind of was my eureka moment. So.
Yeah. I'm going to go to Michael next, because Michael and Harry both have fought this battle for a long time of, if you're going to talk about us, talk with us, include us, ask us, stop making all these decisions about us and for us without us. I mean, it's asinine is what it is. It's old school. It's the way it's always been done. And, it's kind of like, when you raise children, parents always think that they know best, but it's like, how much do you learn when you sit down with your teenager, when you're butting heads and hear their perspective? It's like, oh my gosh, they're coming from this whole other place over here. I didn't appreciate, I didn't acknowledge. And, we have to have open conversations with this. And granted, there'll be some times where they'll say we can't do that. And it might be money, it might be timing, it might be lots of different things, but your voice needs to be heard. I have seen such brilliant solutions you guys have come up with, like Harry, saying, there's people who, want to be part of Facebook, but, they can't because people don't speak Spanish. So here's Harry, a man with dementia, going, well, I can fix that. Let me get a translation thing. We'll all communicate, and boom, problem solved. And yet, we've got all these other people out here who are supposed to be experts who aren't really fixing the problems. And that's one of the things that I think is so valuable, is you guys cut to the chase, and you don't need, 3-year studies, because you're living it, and say, let's just fix this. Let's just move forward. And you know what? And if it's not perfect, we'll adjust it later. But let's get started, because time is so critical. And again, Michael, I know you have battled getting the voice raised so much with several different organizations, and have really, I think, made some nice progress with that. But I think you're probably still frustrated that there's not enough of you being heard. One of the things I'm going to throw out before I have you answer that, though, is an example, too, is I know that you are also in one of your committees in terms of trying to be diversified. You're looking for an African American to be, on a committee and have their voice be heard. And part of the difficulty is getting people with dementia to feel comfortable in that space as well. And I think the more we have you all talk, the easier that'll be. But there still is a lot of cultural diversity, I think, that needs to be sliced through and supported with that. So now I'm going to shut up, Michael, and actually let you answer the question I threw out, 20 minutes ago? No.
Well, I have to tell you, Lori, I think I brought this subject up originally, and I think it all started with me being out on a blog site talking to a bunch of caregivers. Mm-hmm. And I think one of them wrote something to me privately saying, why are you so angry? And it's not the first time I heard this. And I have to tell you, I don't understand why people even ask that question. Because I think anybody who has this damn disease, I can't imagine somebody out there not being angry. And I think the more you are engaged and do things like I do, I think the more angry you become, because you see your skills that are so needed to continue doing what you're trying to do aren't there. And that gets you more angry. If you choose to stay and do nothing, well, then you're probably not going to get as angry, because you're not realizing the difficulties that you would be having. So I think caregivers and other people, to be honest with you, need to start thinking that that anger is there and it builds up over time. And the more that you run into your daily living and trying to be normal, I think you'll find out that it becomes more frustrating as this disease progresses. And I'm not sure how you turn that down. I mean, I can tell you, I don't know how to do that. Maybe there are people out there who can do it better than I can. I used to be a person who, at one point in time, had a lot of control over myself. And, I used to talk about this book. I can't even think of the name, something about don't sweat the small stuff or something like that. But it used to work for me. I used to, things never used to get me uptight or, but I've lost that control. I'm sorry. And, I wish I could gain that control, but I see that as I progress, I lose my self-control over those things. So I snap out and I say things that I really would hate myself for saying it, as I realize afterwards that I said it, but it's too damn late. It's too damn late. And I think it just needs to be accepted that this is a part of the disease. And, people need to start understanding that, it's not us, it's the damn disease that's making us act this way. I wish it was an easy answer, and I wish people would understand that, hey, there was good intentions behind me, inside me, but unfortunately, when people say things, I tend to snap out very quickly and be very reactive, where in the past I had that control to not do that. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people with dementia hate me for doing some of these things, but you know what? I'm not going to let it bother me. It's going to be a fact of life, and unfortunately, I'm not going to waste a lot of time trying to fight myself to control it, because I could spend a lot of time trying to figure out ways to control it and waste a lot of valuable time. And I'm sure it would be successful if I did do it. But if I did do all that, then I wouldn't be able to have the time to spend my time on advocating, because it would take so much of my time trying to convince myself not to do these things and limit myself from being able to do the things that I do, that to me it makes no sense. It's like somebody who has swallowing problems. You can spend a lot of time going into rehab to try to correct your swallowing problems, but what's it going to resolve in the long time? You're going to eventually have the problems anyway. You may delay it a little bit, but is it worth all the time that you put into that? In my opinion, I don't think so. So I guess that's where I stand on that. You know, I know Brian had mentioned suffering, and he's trying to stay away from that word. You know, I think it's all right for us who live with it to say it is okay to say that we suffer. But I think at the same time, we have to realize that that's not our life. We're going to try to live life to the fullest, even though we do suffer with the damn disease.
Right.
I don't like somebody else out there claiming that I suffer who does not have dementia. But I think for us who have it, I think it's okay to say it. I think it's okay for people to understand a part of this. You know, I mean, it's not a pretty disease. And unfortunately, it's one of the worst diseases out there on how people end up suffering with it all the way to the very end. So I think people need to understand that that's why our frustration builds up, because we are suffering.
Well, and I think part of what I love about all you guys is your passion. And, you know, you mix passion with being politically correct, and they clash. You know, they clash. And you know, it's difficult even for me. And, you know, I'm not diagnosed with dementia. Some days I wonder, you know, but, you know, you guys don't have the luxury of time, you know, and I've heard that, I think, probably from each and every one of you, that, you know, things need to change, and that each of you wants to be heard and share your insights and your knowledge, because you don't know how much longer you're going to have that capability to share those things. And I think that's part of the urgency that people don't understand, because the rest of us, you know, everybody thinks they're invincible, but you get that diagnosis and you know you're not, you feel you're not, you see you're not, as things change. And, you know, you're like we had talked earlier, you're constantly kind of regrouping and trying to figure out how to still stay in the game as things decline or slip or change or whatever they're doing. And you have to be direct. And I think sometimes, you know, the political correctness slows us down to the point of being asinine, because everyone's so afraid of talking the truth because it might offend somebody. And the truth is, this is a horrible disease that has major ramifications, not only on those diagnosed, but those they love and who surround them and in their communities. You know, it affects people socially, psychologically, financially, in every aspect of their life. And if we're gonna sit and try to be politically correct and not offend anybody as we talk about the devastation of this disease and the toll it can take, then we're never gonna get the cure. We're never gonna catch up with it unless we have some really hard, honest conversations, and we hear and we see and we participate in things that make us uncomfortable. Because you guys live with it every single day, and the rest of the world needs to understand that. And, we have to speed up. We have to catch up. And I'm not one that likes to, and you hear me say it all the time, market by fear in order to raise funds, if it's for research or if it's to pay for a building or someone's salary. I don't like fear-based stuff, but this is truth-based.
Mm-hmm.
There's a very big difference there. And I think that we have to be truth-based, and people have to be willing to listen and hear the realities. And it may not come out perfect because this is a very emotional topic for anyone who's involved with it, because it's their life, and you guys have a passion for it. And you want to live your life. You want to improve others' lives. And, all the professionals, all the organizations say they do, but until they, in my opinion, start truly listening to the power of the people, we're not going to be able to make the difference that needs to be made in the time frame that it needs to be done. And so I want to thank each of you for being so honest and brave in sharing, because I think it's the only way that we rip down the stigmas of dementia, that we get rid of the myths, and we talk. And each person with dementia story is going to be a little bit different. The symptoms are going to be a little bit different, and everybody keeps trying to make it a bed in a bag, or it's just not. It's not that clean cut. There's not one answer, and it's about getting creative. It's about being passionate. It's about being collaborative, and that's what I see you guys all trying to do. And again, I think it needs to be done even more, and with more and more voices. But we have to have platforms for that to be heard. Because I think your voice helps not only families, but medical professionals, people in the community at large, friends, organizations that are trying to make a difference. Maybe this video will get them to understand, hey, we need so-and-so on this committee, or maybe we need, a few people, not just a token one. Because and that happens so often. So Harry, you've been awful quiet down in the corner, and we don't have Harry be very quiet very often. So
Well, I do suffer, okay, and I've earned the right to say I suffer. This disease has put me through a lot, and I've earned the right to say that. And I get very angry at people that tell me, don't use that word because it's offensive. Okay, now, with that being said, I live on the other side of the fence. I just wrote a blog last week, and the subject of my blog was, "Thank you, dementia. You gave my life purpose." Okay, now, I am no longer angry at my dementia. I'm over that. I am thankful that I now have a purpose in my life. And I would not have this purpose if I did not go through the suffering and the aspects of living with dementia. So I can no longer be angry at that. I can just be thankful that I now have a purpose.
Now, Harry, do you have moments of anger though? I mean, where you try to live in the gratitude and the thankful, but do you have? I mean, because I think I'm a pretty happy person, but I have my moments where some will trigger me.
I have moments of losing control of my emotions that appears to be anger, but it's not anger. It's I lost patience. Like if we're stuck in traffic, I get a high anxiety level. Now that's not anger. I'm not angry at anything. Things like that. And of course I'm having an increase of that. But I can honestly say that I don't have any anger against anything. anymore. You know, because it's my purpose in life overshadows any anger I have. I don't have time to be angry. I know my time. Reality has hit me so hard that I know I don't have the time to play those nonsense games of being angry. You know, I just can't. I have a purpose in life, and that's what I have to work on. So I try not to let that other things get to me. Now, like I said, though, my anger is based on me losing control of my emotions, and that could be caused by anything.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. True, I'm going to have you go ahead and chime in on anger and what your thoughts are.
I'm going to share screen with what my thoughts were this morning on anger. And one of the biggies that I think, if you notice, dangerous. Can you guys see this now?
Yep.
Okay. Anger is the largest part of the word dangerous. I think something our emotions, something in us says, ooh, this is dangerous. It shoots out adrenaline, and anger is very often where that adrenaline gets focused to. That usually anger has, it can be from righteous indignation, fear, frustration. Last week I was working on one of my projects, had been working on it for almost 8 hours. I started early in the morning, and it was late afternoon. I got a ding. I forget whether it was Facebook or I got a phone call, and I had these papers around me on my desk and looked at them and could not put them back together of what I was doing, why I was doing, and I lost a whole day's work, 8 hours work, down the tube completely. That creates a lot of frustration because your system says, oh dear, there's something going wrong. We've got to do something. So what are we going to do about it? And on the top, I put what we do about it. These are incoming causes for the anger. On the top are outgoing possible incomes. There's things that can help that feeling that we've just got to rip, tear, destroy something. And that's a natural outgoing of the adrenaline. And so when I was a child, we used to cut kindling to turn that into a positive. Pulling weeds, rip sheets for making rugs. Now, often I'll run. Just run as hard, as fast as I can go when I'm angry or frustrated. Or writing, trying to find positive ways to, because anger, I believe, has a cause and is created for a reason. I used to think that it was a terrible thing to be angry. I don't think it's a terrible thing to be angry. I think it can be a very constructive thing. And I think those that are working with us can help us find positive ways to use the anger because it's given for a reason to do something with, to change things in some way. We see loss here, loss there. It's scary. I was in the bathroom. I had no idea. I went in, turned on the light to go potty, and I had no idea where I was. Nothing was familiar. That creates ooh, this is a dangerous situation. Creates the anger, the frustration, which then I go to my husband, I'm scared, I'm angry, I'm losing everything. What can we do about that for constructive outcomes? So that was my morning thoughts.
Well, that was really good. I never noticed before that anger was in danger, you know, and that was really kind of enlightening that word is inside that other one. I never would have.
Oh, hello, Susan.
Hi.
Welcome. How you doing?
Good. Thank you.
Glad you could join us today.
Since we're talking about anger, and you mentioned something yesterday that I wrote down here before you arrived. I didn't know you were coming. I don't know whether you'll feel comfortable talking about it. But yesterday you said something about your concern about bringing the grandkids because of anger outbursts that you can't ever take back.
Right. I think that anger has taken on a new meaning for me. To be angry that someone cut you off in the drive lane is a quick knee-jerk response to an aggravation that we've all been familiar with. I, like you, never felt comfortable with anger and actually spent some time with a therapist to learn how to express anger many years ago. So when I now feel angry to the point of an outburst, inappropriately so, it's not correct place anger. It's misguided, and to try to take it back, to hold on to it so it doesn't show outward is a huge challenge that gets the way of the normal interaction that we would have. It's a very misguided thing for me. And I find that to be disturbing to the point that anger seems to be its own entity now, that it is fearful in the sense that you would not want to burst out on someone that was undeserving, if that makes sense.
I think that makes perfect sense. Susan, can we just have you introduce yourself and who you are?
Yeah, I've tried all time here come, but I never know how. And then your little link came, if you do it right now. So that works good for me. Thank you, do. I'm Susan Sushin. I live in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I am in my 50s, but I'm not sure how old. I was diagnosed approximately 12 years ago with early onset Alzheimer. Did not pay attention, went forward life until about 3 and 4, I'm not sure time, years ago, when my body began to exhibit some things that I could not make sense, and went back and came back Dr. FTD, a PPA, and a movement disorder. I live with my sister and brother-in-law. I have not been able to work. The kind let me live here. I have 2 grown daughters and 5 grandchildren. I have spent several years working diligently to advocate for the awareness of early onset dementia, and I'm finding that more difficult. Not unlike this topic today, anger, it just surprises the heck out of you. And putting I have aphasia, pardon me. Putting thoughts into a cohesiveness is imperative, so that I am perceived as someone that is speak truth and not just babble. So I think this is a great topic that out of shame for some, or maybe have not experienced yet, maybe hoping never ever will, but when does, I think can feel very impactful and misleading to our care partners, when we may explode, for lack of a better word, for them to understand that many times that anger is really out of confusion, and the inability to figure out the why and how of some mundane thing. Sometimes the simplest of things suddenly can be triggered by such a strong reaction. So I think it's a great topic. Thank you for letting me participate.
Good. We're glad you're here. Thank you. Brian, you had some comments?
Yeah. First of all, I wanted to direct this to Harry in something that he said about Alzheimer's giving purpose in your life, and I hope that, you know, I'm still new to this. I was diagnosed in October of 14, so I still have that anger a little bit in me, but I also I have the passion for advocacy, which I applaud you for being able to get over that hump and not have that anger. I'm hoping that I get to that, and I know I will, because in my case, I'll probably forget that I'm angry. So, you know, I also wanted to mention to True that I love your hat. It's pretty. You look nice with the purple hat on. So, I had to say that. But I wanted to say that, you know, we have anger sometimes regarding our Alzheimer's, but I mentioned in the beginning of the conversation that our care partners also have that anger. And I want to share this with you, that my wife sometimes comes to the presentations that I give. And I always ask her, so how did I do? Did I make any mistakes? Could I, you know, do something better, and so forth? Well, we were at one presentation, and we were on the way home. And I asked her, I said, so how did I do? And she started crying. And I immediately I thought about, oh, what did I just say something I shouldn't have said, or what? And then she says no, and I got to read this because this was part of one of my blog posts. It was called "The Angry" or "The Alzheimer's Has Two Faces." But she said, you stand up there looking all polished and professional, reading from your prepared speech, smiling, cracking jokes, basically being the man I fell in love with, the man I married, the man I terribly miss. They, your audience, don't see who you are when you're away from the spotlight. They don't see the confusion, the anger, the anxiousness. They don't see the man who can't remember how to do the simplest of chores. They don't see the man who has a reminder on his phone to eat and to take a bath. They don't see the man who can't remember something he was told 5 or 10 minutes ago. They don't see the man who, without a prepared speech or notes, can't speak without stuttering or going blank. So I'm sad. I'm pissed off that you can show that side of yourself when you're in the public eye, but they don't get to see what Alzheimer's has done to you, what it has done to us. How do you do that? And the only explanation that I could give to her was, I don't know. In that the PR guy that I used to be, he lives back here in the back part of my brain. And when I'm in front of an audience to give a presentation, he kind of bursts through to the front part of my brain again from the long-term memory. He kind of takes charge. And then I become that person. But then when it all ends, I go back to just being me in what I call my fog. And I just sit in my Alzheimer's. And I just live my daily life. I don't know if that's a clear description of what I go through, but it was just it just shows you that what our families, our care partners go through on a daily basis. Like this morning, I woke up, I really don't remember too much about this morning. All I remember is her bringing me a hot compress to put on my head. I don't remember why, but I remember the compress on my head. So, but even when I'm here, you know, talking on here, that PR guy once again comes through, and I know that one day he's not going to come through. And I don't try to worry about that too much. So the anger part, I understand that I still have a certain amount of anger, but more towards the people whom I've lost. But I also have the anger towards my family not deserving this life.
Mm-hmm. That was a real powerful piece that you read, and I think really true. And I think I see that even sometimes when you guys get attacked by other individuals who say, well, you can't have the disease because you wouldn't be able to do this, and how hurtful that is, and how destructive that is when you're attacked, you know, being told, well, you know, you can't, you know, that's impossible, you're faking it, you know, you're all of those types of things. But I think we all go back to kind of who we are and what we're most comfortable with at our core. But I think the piece that, again, a lot of people don't understand is the effort it takes to be that person and to show up and to be that advocate. I mean, Michael, I've seen, you've shared with me your scripts and how you write out your speeches. And I wouldn't be able to read one the way that but you have come up with a formula to be able to write and color code and change sizes and all kinds of things so that you get up there and it's just, I know that inside, and I go, oh my gosh, it's amazing. It's just amazing, you know, but you've come up with these systems to be able to look like it's just flowing with no effort. And you all do that so amazingly well because of the passion to make change and to make a difference. And I think, we have to talk about that more so that people understand what it takes to stand up and show up and to be able to communicate where people will listen to you and respect you and the voice at hand. And it's a huge effort that you guys put into this, and it has definitely impact on those that you love too. And for your wife to say that's the man I fell in love with, where is he? Why can't he show up at home more often? And it's like everything else. You only have so much energy, and you can't do it all the time. But you guys, are able to lift up and do so many things on so many levels. So I thank you for that. Anybody else have any comments on what Brian, Paul-Ann?
The two phases of dementia, I love that story. And one of the things that I know I get very frustrated with is that people, it's along the lines of what Brian was talking about, is they look at you and they say, oh, there doesn't seem like there's anything wrong with you. And then they turn around, I was watching a movie with my uncle who keeps saying, well, you don't look like there's anything wrong with you. You don't look like, I hear this for all day long. And then we sit down to watch a movie and he says, and I start asking him questions, who's this, who's that? And he says, are you watching this movie or not? He gets angry at me because I can't keep up. All the while he's telling me, how you don't look like there's anything wrong with you. And I think, I find I get frustrated with my husband too at times. He's really, really wonderful about it. But, he will be like, why are you doing this? Or he doesn't understand, why do you keep repeating this over and over and over? And I know it's frustrating to him, but I have no control over that.
Good point. Michael and then Harry?
I'll tell you, when she said that you don't look like you have Alzheimer's or something like that, it reminds me of something that Kate came up with. She said to somebody who said that to her one time, she goes, well, you don't look like you're an asshole or something like that. That just sticks in my mind because it's so true. These people say these stupid things to you, and Kate responded back to somebody one time, which was, I thought it was funny.
Yep, not everything shows. Harry, did you have a comment?
Well, I think a lot of times we tend to use our disease as a crutch for being angry. It's convenient for us to be angry. It's hard to get over the anger. It's hard to accept the way we are. So we use the crutch and we say, okay, we're going to be angry at it. Instead of trying to do something about it. I get very upset with people that are angry at the disease and not willing to do anything about it. If you're not willing to do anything about your anger, then stay angry. Live that life. That's your choice. But if you want to get over it, make the effort to learn ways to get over your anger. You don't have to be angry when you have dementia. I mean, that's not a requirement of having this disease. And the more you learn how to get over it, the better off you're going to be.
Mm-hmm. The only thing I would say to that is the possibility with some dementias, it might be easier said than done. With like frontal temporal lobe and things like that, that can be a little bit depending on what part of the brain has been affected. But I think that's a great attitude. And I think most of us believe that anyways. If you're going to complain about something, come up with a solution, or at least try to be working on one to improve things. True?
I think it's a goal at any rate. When I read some of the things that Harry, you write, at times it shows that very definitely you are angry. You go through periods of anger just like all the rest of us. And
Sure.
yeah, and
That's natural.
but you focus.
I don't live there.
Yeah. You focus on getting past it, on doing something with it. And because to me, anger is a bullet. Mm-hmm. It's going to do something. So we have a choice. If while we still have the ability to make some decisions, we have the choice of what we do with that impetus, because something is going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Linda just made a note in the chat book that her husband Lee gets angry when he's trying to do something and he gets it wrong. And then when she tries to help him, he'll usually just throw his hands up in the air and kind of gives up. And, just gives up. So it's a difficult situation. And Brian, you had made a comment too, that it's the independent side of you that comes out, and sometimes it comes out in terms of frustration. And I think that that's very true. This is a disease of trial and error, and it's trial and error in terms of physical abilities, mental abilities, psychological, emotional. It really it hits you on many levels in many different ways. And again, for every individual, it's going to be a little bit different, and that's exactly why your voices need to be heard. Because we have to learn how to help you cope, and how to help the rest of us cope, and how to make society a better place for people with dementia to live, as a whole. And we can't do that without hearing the true voice of those living with dementia. It's just it's a critical piece of the pie and of the equation that cannot be forgotten. And we're just going to have to still get out there and yell and scream and write our articles and do our little videos, and letting people know the importance of your voice, and how much you have to offer, and by having you be part of groups and organizations will not only give you purpose, but will help them hone in on their direction in terms of services and priorities. And I think that that's very, very critical in this day and age. And, I've seen it come a long ways just in the past 5 years, but, the road is very long. So even though we've come a long ways, we have miles to go yet in terms of you guys being recognized. So again, I thank you all for your honesty and your bravery and your time and your talents and your insights. Susan?
Yes. I don't mean to interrupt, but if I don't say, I'll forget. Someone said something to me other day. I was so surprised or confused by this these sudden little outbursts of anger, and I was trying to make sense and find way to fix it. I have some tools, so to speak. So if that feel come can have something address it, another alternative. And in our discussion, they say to me, you must also remember that you're asking your brain to logically address something that is very illogical. It is misplaced. It's so recognize your struggle with find the change, make it better, is a part of in my brain that is not as function as was before. So I'm asking something that is now much more foreign, where once I could apply it and think through it and solution it and move on from it. Now it just happens, and then when the try figure, it's mud in the brain.
Mm-hmm.
I think your point about, I agree wholeheartedly with the attitude I've lived my entire life with. You can choose. I love that, and I love that we have that choice. Learning to live with the knowledge that those choices, so to speak, are limited, or they need to be completely different than what was once familiar with, is for me the challenge. I hope that can learn from those with the same experience of that lack of ability to draw out new from illogic. I can find that. I know I can not only be one that gets stuck. It's not an attitude. It's, for me, it is a moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that is how I am different than maybe when I was first diagnosed and was angry about the diagnosis, angry that this was happening to me. That was a different type, for me, anger than how now be. And I'm not sure what answer is that fix.
Well, thank you. I thank you for your honesty, and I think as the disease progresses, everybody, gets into new points, and what you once used to be able to control or fix or rally in, you can't always anymore, and it's you slip and you slide with this disease. And one of the things that you guys have told me so many times in terms of the progression of your disease is that when people try to label individuals with dementia by stages, and you guys tell me over and over, you know what, I can be all 7 stages in one day, so stop trying to make me stick in a pattern here, and learn to go with my flow, because I can't do anything but go with my flow, because I don't have control over all of those things. And again, I think that's something for the rest of us to have to learn to graciously live with, again, know how much effort and time and desire you have into trying to control things, but you just can't all the time. Sometimes you can, but sometimes you just can't. And that is the disease. We're a little bit over our time, but I want to thank you all for being with us. Drew, you had made a comment in the chat box. If you want to just mention that quick.
I didn't want to interrupt, because then her thought's gone, and if I don't, my thought's gone, so I wrote it instead. I wrote, and anger at self when I blow it, like sharing a secret publicly, a moment with no filter, and then my anger at myself. And where does that anger go?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, that's a really, really good point. Really good point. And again, anybody else have any other last comments that they want to wrap up with? Pauline, any last comment?
No, I'm good.
Okay, Brian?
I think I've said everything.
Okay, Harry?
I think the best thing you could do when you get angry is nothing. Because as soon as you do something, it gets worse.
Yeah.
It's good advice.
Well, it might depend, because like with True, you say when you get angry, you like to write, or you used to, chop kindling, or, focus or run or do different things. So for some people it might be to sit still, and for other people it might be to try to redirect that anger, to move through it. So again, I think everybody does it different, and I think to not react for some people is the perfect thing to do. And for others, they gotta really like almost flush it out of their system and get it out. So it's part of getting to know yourself and what works for you and your surroundings. How about you, Michael?
I just have one comment to Harry's response. That's easier said than done.
I'm not saying it doesn't take work, but I'm saying it can be done.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll let you figure out how to change me then.
Yeah.
I'm with you, Michael.
You're changed, Michael. There's going to be a day when you mellow out. I know it. It's coming.
Susan, any last comments from you?
Thank you for allowing me use voice and exchange ideas with some great minds. Thank you.
Great. Well, thanks for sharing with us today. Our next Dementia Chats will be June 14th. Thank you all for your honesty and your time and your great insights. Have a great week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.